Hi, we're here with the Harley Davidson Sport Glide, Billiard Grey. I've had it for a couple of weeks. I've really enjoyed riding this bike. It's been great fun. So I'll just say a few pros and then maybe go on to some cons about it and just my experience of it. So one of the main factors that I've really found a novelty on this bike is that the seat height is nice and low. I can get my feet firmly on the ground. Doesn't happen on that many bikes. It makes it a lot easier when you're trying to maneuver it, when you're in traffic or at junctions, etc. I really like the switch gears on this. They look complicated, but actually it's quite straightforward. I really like the indicators. I find them just quite bold. You've got the right one on the right side and the left one on the left side. They self-cancel after a while. If it's only a slight turn or something, you do need to cancel them. You've got keyless ignition, so key is in my pocket. So we've just got the fob here. You've also got a key which does the panniers, and you've got a steering lock on it. So you do need to shove that in the locks. So that's just to keep it in your pocket, and when you walk away, your bike is safe. Yeah, so yeah, you've got your power on and off, start, hazards. So you've got the cruise control here, left indicator, horn, lights, high and low, and the button there that cycles through the information on your dash. So obviously you've got speedo, lots of little lights, and then fuel, how many miles you've done the trip, and you can do revs. So Harley Davidson have done a really good job on this with the attention to detail of the branding. You've got logos all over the bike throughout. You've got on the dials, there's a little one on the rather dusty ring mirror, obviously here, and then if I get off, you've also got them, you've got them on the underneaths of the pillion pegs. It's actually moulded into the tyres as well. Here, all the way along. Dum, dum, dum. Huh. So it's, and in the headlight, there's lots of little logos all over the bike. You've got panniers on the back. That's really good. I haven't used them a huge amount, but I did just stop and get some milk and biscuits on the way. So you've got a little release catch here with a nice slow opening with a hydraulic strut. You can fit quite a lot in there, and then it just closes and latches down. You've got the lock and a release mechanism so you can take them off. I've really enjoyed riding this bike because it sounds lovely. It's quite quiet when you've got it on low revs, which is really good if you just want to sneak away from your house without annoying your neighbours and things. But when you open it up, it's really throaty. It's a nice roar. There's a lot of power there. When you want to pass something on the road, you can just overtake without even thinking about whether you've got enough power to get around something. And I really enjoyed that. It's very pleasing.
Impression of this one when you jumped on it?
It's quite, what was my first impression? I think my first impression was actually, it felt very similar to the first big bike I owned, which was a Suzuki Intruder 750, and it had that same reach. I think this has got slightly further forward controls for the feet, but it's quite a similar ride position. Unfortunately for me, I got rid of that because it gave me a bad back because it was too big, just physically too long for me.
Handling?
Handling. It's really lovely to handle. It's so well balanced, so smooth. It is so enjoyable just riding around, cruising about. Even going down little lanes that I do like doing, it does handle really well, which I was surprised that it was that manoeuvrable. They've obviously got a bit of a reputation for cruising down highways and things, and it'd be really comfortable for doing that. It's kind of like just sitting in an armchair, and it's effortless. We've got a really nice big fuel tank. It's just under 19 litres, so you don't have to fill up very often. It'll take you miles and miles. That's probably why they've designed it like that, so you can cruise around. The engine is big and powerful. We've got a V-twin. It's 1745cc, really big, and it's got so much torque and grunt. I try and keep it in a relatively low gear because you've got more control over it. If you're in a really high gear, then it can just run away with you, which isn't ideal. But it's got such a lot of torque, and the weight is so low. That's why it's really good for slow control. I think a huge thing with the Harley Davidson is the community you get from it. There's so many dealerships around, and they're welcoming whenever you turn up with a Harley Davidson. You know, you can go in there and have a tea or a coffee, and there's always people in there who have a similar biking interest to you. And being out on the road, everyone will greet you. It's just a big Harley Davidson family. So with the styling, there's some really nice little touches to it. But one of the main things I really like these wheels. They just look really good. These mirrors are really good. They're short and stubby, but they've got really good vision of the road behind you. But they don't have that sticky outy Mickey Mouse ears thing going on. So one of the things I noticed when it first arrived was that it's got the indicators hanging off the bottom of the handlebars. And I thought that was unusual. I like that. I like the look of this. It also is similar to the wheels, that it's got this metal bit that shows, like that snazzy bit. This here is the suspension adjustment. Nice and easy to do, really accessible. It's on the lowest setting currently. On the number one, you just twist it round. So just mentioning about the suspension, and
Very noisy day.
it's Dave. So anyway, I was just saying about the suspension and that it's really smooth, and I hadn't mentioned it earlier. I think because I hadn't really paid much attention to it because it wasn't necessary, because you just go over lumps and bumps and don't notice it.
Okay.
So the levers I find nice and easy. They're not that big a reach, which I am a fan of because I've got small hands, but they're nice and easy, quite light. The gear shift is a nice positive feel to it. You know that you've changed gear. It's got a little bit of a clunk to it. So the brakes work really well on this. I'm happy going fast on it because I know that the brakes are going to stop me when I want to.
What did you just say?
I like this bike.
Why?
It's nice.
That's strong words coming from you, Lana.
I know. I'm never normally that enthusiastic, am I?
No.
Yeah, no, I do like this bike. It's fun getting on it. I was just like, it's like just roars around the place.
Is it because of the horsepower?
Yeah, the horsepower, the torque, the power is just big and cruises about. It's good.
Some sort of presence on the road, doesn't it? Like, it's a big engine.
I've always got presence on the road, Dave.
There's the director
we're
over
having
here.
A joke. We're having a joke.
Just going to run through a few cons, work from the front to the back. When I was riding through puddles, it wasn't even raining, but I was ending up with splatter coming up somehow and hitting the top of the tank. I'm not quite sure how, but it was peculiar. So the seat, whilst being very low, is actually set too far back for me. I was finding that a bit of a tricky issue when I'm giving it some beans and open up the throttle. My feet are struggling to keep on the pegs. So it was a bit disconcerting that I was getting pushed back into the seat and then my feet didn't really have a very strong position on the front. So I think, I'm pretty sure you can get a customised seat for this. The pillion seat I did sit on briefly. It's not that comfortable. Again, I think you could probably get different ones for if you're going to have a passenger more. But does the job. The panniers are a nice size and you can fit a lot in them, but they have a bit of a wibble on them. So people I was riding with did actually mention that as you go along, they have a bit of flex. At the back, we've got integrated brake and indicator lights and tail lights. They look cool, but I'm not the biggest fan of them because I find that when you've actually got the indicator on and then you've got the brake on, you lose some of the indicator being standing out to other road users. And I just feel like I'd like them to actually really know where I'm going because of safety. I quite like a dialed rev counter. It's not really essential for this bike because I think I've mentioned before, it's very forgiving in what gear you're in anyway. It's not, you're not sort of thrashing the engine or needing it to be precise on what revs it is. Obviously it rides better if you're in the right gear, but I just like rev counters. So the bike's keyless. I find that a little bit frustrating because when I'm at home, I've got limited space where I keep the bikes, and I have to go back in and find the key just to move the bike somewhere, which is a bit time consuming.
What happens if you don't find the key?
It flashes its lights and gets in a tears at me.
What's that mean?
It means it's going to have an alarm and not be stolen, and
Okay.
it wants to know where I've gone, and it feels all lonely and left out. I was saying that when riding this, I tend to not filter so much because it's quite wide and it's harder to nip in and out of things like wing mirrors when you've got panniers on the back and the width at the front as well. From a personal point of view, I like tinkering with bikes. I like doing my own spannering, adjustments, customization things. This isn't really the kind of bike you can do that on. So for me, I find that as a bit of a downside, but a lot of people would think that's great because you just give it to the dealer. The dealer does the work and you get your bike back all ready for you. So it just depends on what you want to do with your bike. So I want to say a big thank you to Harley Davidson for loaning us this bike. It's been excellent fun. I've really loved having it. It's just such a big, powerful engine, a lot of torque, so well balanced, such a smooth ride. I've really enjoyed having this.